An alien girl was tied to a sign that said, "Take her for a bottle of liquor," until a human set her free. Rain clung to the surface of Pearl Halo Concourse like a second skin, turning every glass panel into a mirror of gray water and trembling light. The concourse sat high above the teal ocean, part trade hub, part residential district, where noise echoed off polished walls and the scent of ozone mixed with salt. It was midday, though light never really reached the ground here. The clouds above were thick and heavy, streaked with industrial vapor from the upper docks. Roe Calder stood near the edge of a small crowd gathered around a Chrome Street post. He wasn't dressed like most people here. While others wore fitted polycoats and colored masks, he stood in plain workwear: dark canvas jacket, simple boots, a waterproof satchel slung across his chest. His posture was straight but quiet, the kind that came from long habit, not pride. He wasn't a soldier anymore, though his eyes moved like one's, mapping exits, reading hands, checking reflections in window glass. He was supposed to be here for a simple errand: collect growth samples from the South Kelp arrays for the city's food labs, then log nutrient variance data before the evening shift. It was routine work, and he liked it that way. Routine didn't ask for emotion. Routine didn't surprise him. Until today. At the center of the crowd, an alien girl stood tied to a metal post with ribbon cable, her wrists bound together in front of her. A rectangular sign hung from a chain around her neck. The letters were crude, painted in red sealant that was already dripping in the rain. "Take her for a bottle of liquor." She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She stood barefoot on the slick tiles, rain running down her collarbones, through the torn edges of a thin cloth wrap clinging to her thighs. Her skin was pale violet, almost translucent under the rain, and faint streaks of lavender blue veins glimmered near her temples. Her hair was long, white, and heavy, with strands plastered to her shoulders and back. The texture wasn't human. Each strand reflected faint silver when light caught it. The name scrawled on the signs, corner read Caney. Ro didn't need to ask who had written it. The jeering voices nearby told enough. "Half-breed," someone muttered. "Should have been shipped off with the rest. Look at her eyes. No wonder they dumped her here." Ro stayed still for a long moment, jaw set, eyes fixed on the girl's face. She was shivering, but her chin stayed high. Her expression wasn't blank, it was controlled. Fear was there, but hidden behind effort. He could tell she had been holding her breath for too long, waiting for something to happen and not sure what it would be. He took one step forward. A man blocking his way turned with a smirk. "You interested, worker? The sign says the price." Ro's voice was low even. "I'm interested in the sign." "What?" He took a sealed glasslet of Mirin Spice liquor from his satchel and placed it in the man's hand. "You wanted a bottle. That's one. You got what you came for." Before the man could answer, Ro reached up, tore the board from the post, and held it under his arm. The rain hit harder for a second, loud on the glass canopy overhead. The crowd fell quiet. Ro pulled a utility knife from his belt, pressed his thumb on the release, and slid it cleanly under the ribbon cable. Caney flinched at the first touch. Her reflex was pure instinct, a jerk of fear that made her gasp softly through her teeth. Ro didn't speak. He moved slow, deliberate, making sure she saw each motion. The first band came loose with a metallic snap. The second one took longer. The skin beneath was raw, faintly bruised. He turned the knife sideways, careful not to cut her. When it fell away, she staggered. He caught her by the elbow, firm, steady, not claiming. "You can walk?" he asked. "Yes." Her voice was hoarse, faintly accented. "Don't pull me." "I won't." He guided her away from the post. The crowd shifted, whispering as they passed. No one stopped them. No one helped. They walked beneath the outer glass walk where the air smelled of algae and burning electric coils. Caney's breathing was uneven. Her eyes darted to every shadow. When a group of dock clerks turned to follow, Ro shifted their path without comment, cutting through a service corridor, then a stairwell lined with algae piping. He knew the maintenance routes by memory. He worked down here every day. No one else did. Caney glanced at him, puzzled. "You know where to go. I know where they won't." He opened a narrow hatch door and let her step through first. The noise of the concourse faded to a distant hum. They entered a dim passage lit by amber emergency strips. Pipes ran along both walls, dripping condensation. Caney stopped halfway through, pressing her palms to her arms for warmth. "Why?" she asked suddenly. "Why help me? You don't even know me." Ro turned, met her eyes. "Didn't need to know you to see what that was. It was a punishment." Her tone was flat, defensive. "They said I refused my placement." He tilted his head slightly. "You did?" "Yes." She looked down. It was with an old man. "He wanted me for his workers' quarters." "I'm not a servant." "Doesn't sound like it," he said. "What are you?" She hesitated, unsure if it was safe to answer. "I was a translator. Off-world. They said I was too proud. Maybe I am." Rose studied her face a moment. She wasn't wrong. There was pride there, but it was the kind that came from surviving too much, not from arrogance. He nodded once toward the corridor. "You need heat. I live close. Come on." She didn't move right away. "You're not with security?" "I'm with Kelperays. I grow food. That's all." She studied him again. His face was calm, but unreadable. A faint scar ran along his right temple, a mark from years back. She recognized the way he stood, the stillness that came from someone who used to move differently. "You've done more than that," she said quietly. "Used to. Now I don't." They walked the rest of the way in silence. Caney's legs trembled with fatigue, but she kept pace. Ro keyed his habitation door at the end of the walkway. The pod's lights came on automatically, soft white, filtered through the reflection of rain on the window. Inside, the space was minimal. A sleeping alcove, a low table, a compact kitchen with stacked trays of dried kelp, and a steaming pot of fallen seed coffee. The air was warm, clean, and smelled faintly of salt. He handed her a towel and motioned toward the heater. "Dry off." Caney hesitated, watching him. "You're not expecting anything?" No, he met her gaze. "You've had enough taken from you today." She nodded slowly and took the towel. Her hand shook while she dried her face. He could see her pulse jump under the skin of her throat. She kept her distance, not out of distrust, but out of habit. Ro opened a cabinet, pulled out a pan, and lit the stove. "You eat meat?" "Yes." He set 2 reef goat steaks on the pan. They sizzled as the heat rose, releasing a smell like char and salt. He didn't talk while he cooked. She watched the back of his shoulders, solid, deliberate, a man who moved with economy and patience. After a while, she said quietly, "You could have left me there." "I could have," he said, turning the steaks. "Why didn't you?" He looked over his shoulder, his face unreadable but not cold. "Because I was tired of pretending not to see things." Something in her expression changed, less guarded now, more confused. She sat down at the table and folded the towel in her lap. When he placed a plate in front of her, she looked at the food like she hadn't seen real meat in weeks. "You feed strangers often?" "No," he said, "but you're not going to be a stranger for long if you stay in this district." Her jaw tightened at that. "They'll talk." "They already are." He sat opposite her, cut into his steak, and started to eat. Caney followed after a moment, chewing carefully. The silence was not awkward. It was cautious, balanced. As they ate, she watched him from under her lashes. He didn't act like a rescuer or a savior. He didn't ask questions that forced her to explain her shame. That unsettled her more than cruelty would have. Halfway through the meal, she asked, "You live alone?" "Yes." "By choice?" "Mostly." Caney pushed her plate forward slightly. "Then you shouldn't have stopped for me." Ro looked up from his food. "I stop when I want to. No one tells me otherwise." She met his gaze for a moment too long, then looked down again. Outside, rain continued to fall, turning the city lights into long, wavering bands on the window. For the first time since the post, Caney's breathing slowed. She pulled the towel around her shoulders and closed her eyes, exhaustion catching up. Ro cleared the plates quietly and set a fresh cup of coffee in front of her. "Drink," he said. "It'll help you warm up." She looked at the cup, then at him. "You don't even know if I'm dangerous." "I know by now," he said simply. She almost smiled. "And if I were, then I'd still have untied you. Just differently." Caney studied him again, trying to understand his calm. "You're not like the others." "No," he said, leaning back. "And you don't have to be either." She turned toward the window, watching the lights dance over the wet metal surfaces outside. Her reflection stared back at her. Tired eyes, pale violet skin, long white hair streaked with rainwater. She barely recognized herself. Ro followed her gaze. "You can stay here tonight. After that, you decide." She didn't answer right away. Her voice came quiet, almost lost in the rain. "I'll decide in the morning." "Good." He turned off the stove, checked the door lock once, then sat by the window. Caney watched him through half-closed eyes. There was no performance in the way he sat. No restless movement, no waiting for reward. Just quiet presence. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel tired. Not defeated, just tired. Ro's thoughts stayed simple. The city would whisper by morning. Someone might report him. He didn't care. His only plan was to make sure she was safe for one night. Tomorrow could argue with itself. The rain thickened again outside. Inside, the heater hummed softly. Two strangers shared the same quiet space. One rebuilding her breath, the other remembering what it felt like to do the right thing and not explain it. The storm moved out by dawn, leaving thin mist clinging to the edges of the glass walks. Light filtered through the upper domes in soft gray bands, faint and diffused like light through water. Inside Ro's habitation pod, the world felt still for the first time in days. The air smelled faintly of cooked meat and salt, the trace of last night's reef goat steaks. Ro sat at the small table with a tablet in front of him, reviewing kelp array data from the Southern District. The numbers were steady. The cycle was healthy. It should have been a simple morning. Yet his attention kept sliding to the corner of the room where Caney still slept. She lay half-curled on the padded mat near the heater. His gray shirt hung loose around her, half-buttoned. Her white hair fanned across the woven kelp mat like a spill of light. Her skin, violet in daylight, caught the sun's faint blue hue through the glass panels, turning it almost metallic in places. The swelling on her wrist had gone down. Ro noticed the small movements, her eyes twitching under her eyelids, a faint jerk in her shoulders as she dreamed. A survivor's sleep, never deep, never trusting. He turned back to his work, but the data blurred. The image of her tied to that post the day before kept flashing in fragments, her eyes refusing to lower, her shoulders shaking from cold, but not fear, the sound of people laughing like it cost them nothing. When Caney stirred, he looked up. Her eyes opened slow, adjusting to the filtered light. For a moment, she seemed unsure of where she was. Then her gaze found him, and the tension in her shoulders eased slightly. "Morning," he said. She pulled herself upright, the towel slipping from her shoulder. "You stayed up." "Didn't sleep much," he said. "Old habit." She watched him for a few seconds, as if trying to decide whether that meant danger. "You used to be military," she said. It wasn't a question. "Not anymore. But you move like one." He gave a short nod. "That's the problem with habits, too. They don't quit when you do." Caney stood, stretching carefully. The hem of his shirt brushed the middle of her thighs, the fabric clinging slightly to her damp skin. She caught him looking for half a second. He didn't avert his gaze fast enough, and she smiled faintly, not offended, more like she was assessing how honest he'd be about it. "You're not from here," he said. She tightened the shirt at her waist. "I came through the relocation program 6 months ago. Work assignment on level 7, translation office. They said it was temporary. What happened?" "I told the wrong man no," she said plainly. Her tone was calm, but her eyes carried that distant, burnt edge of humiliation that doesn't leave easily. "They called it insubordination. After that, I wasn't listed on the shift logs anymore. No job, no credits. Someone decided to make a public example." Rolling back. "So they left you tied up to prove what saying no costs." She nodded. "You saw the price tag." He said nothing for a while. Outside, the hum of a passing ferry filled the silence. Caney's expression softened. She looked around the small pod. The space was clean but lived in, tools organized by type, 2 cups always in the same spot, 1 extra chair at the table. It felt like someone who didn't expect company, but still made room for it. "You live alone," she said. Mostly. He looked toward the counter. "Had a partner once. She left for an orbital posting 3 years ago. Said Pearl Halo was too quiet. I didn't follow." Caney took that in quietly. You liked quiet. I still do, he said. But quiet gets heavy when there's no one else in it. Her eyes softened a little. I know what that feels like. Rose stood and crossed to the small cooktop. You eat porridge? If it's warm, she said. He poured Zyronberry porridge into 2 bowls, added a slice of fried reef goat from last night. Simple food, but it filled the room with warmth and a smell that pulled Caney closer to the table. While they ate, she spoke again, voice quieter. What will they do to you for taking me? Probably nothing. Nobody there wants to file a report. They'd have to admit what they did. And if they do, then they'll find me hard to move, he said without hesitation. Caney watched him closely. There was no pride in his tone, only certainty. The kind that came from a man who didn't bluff. She found herself believing him. When a meal was done, she rinsed the bowls before he could stop her. You don't have to, he said. I need to do something, she replied, hands under the warm water. If I stand still too long, I start thinking. Ro understood. He let her work in silence. The rhythm of her movements, measured, precise, reminded him of someone used to control in small spaces, someone who'd had to survive by planning every gesture. He broke the silence after a while. You need clean clothes. There's a supply unit on level 4. I'll get them. I'll come with you, she said immediately. Not yet. Her voice sharpened. You're worried someone will see me. I'm worried someone will touch you, he said. The directness caught her off guard. She looked at him for a long moment, then sat down again. You're not like anyone I've met here, she said quietly. That's good, he said. When he left, the pod door sealed with a soft hydraulic sound. Caney stood at the window, watching the light move across the kelp fields below. The view stretched far, the teal ocean beneath the glass panels, the fairy lights cutting slow paths through the mist. It was beautiful, but sterile, the kind of world that could hide cruelty behind polite smiles. Her reflection in the glass looked fragile but unfamiliar. Long white hair clinging to her back, violet skin still blotched from cold. She touched the spot on her wrist where the cable had been and pressed it gently, grounding herself in the small pain. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible, and that scared her. When the door reopened half an hour later, Rose stepped in carrying a sealed package. He tossed it lightly onto the table. Got you a change of clothes. Neutral colors. Nobody will look twice. Caney hesitated before opening it. Inside were folded layers of pale gray and soft blue. Simple concourse wear, light and clean. She held the top piece up, a fitted tied fabric tunic, soft enough to move in. This cost more than one drink, she said. He shrugged. I used to have savings. Haven't used them in a while. She gave a small laugh that surprised even her. You're terrible at minding your own business. I never learned how. As she changed behind the curtain, Ro turned back to the window. He heard the rustle of fabric, the soft sound of her breathing steadying. When she stepped out, the new clothes fit close to her frame, her posture already straighter. How do I look? She asked. Like you belong, he said. For the first time, her lips curved into something close to a smile. Not wide, not theatrical, but real. That's dangerous here. Then we'll deal with dangerous, he said. She studied him again, more openly this time. What about you? You risked your job for me. Why? What's your reason? He hesitated. The question was fair. The real answer surprised even him. Because the city's clean, but not kind. I'm tired of pretending that's enough. Caney's eyes softened. You think you can fix it? No, he said simply. But I can keep one person from breaking. Her throat tightened at that. She turned away quickly, pretending to adjust the sleeve of her tunic. Outside, the mist began to lift. The ocean far below shimmered with pale, turquoise light. For the first time since she'd been left on that post, Caney felt something that resembled safety. Not trust yet, but safety. Ro crossed to the table, picked up the sign he'd brought back from the street, and set it down between them. The red letters were still visible beneath dried rain streaks. Caney stared at it. Why did you bring that? To remind us we're not to go back to, he said. She touched the edge of the board. And what will you do with it? Repaint it, he said. Later. Her voice dropped. What will it say? He met her eyes. You'll see. The room fell silent again, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was the kind that held breath, the kind that carried the faint tension of two lives starting to shift toward each other without either one saying it yet. The camera would have pulled back here, framing the two figures inside that small pod against the vast glass city beyond. A human and an alien woman sitting across from one another, sharing quiet food and an unspoken agreement that neither of them would go back to what came before. Outside, Pearl Halo gleamed in the morning light. Too clean, too polished, too calm, and somewhere deep in its quiet structure, the first ripple of something human had begun. The morning sun came through the glass in long, white lines that cut across the small habitation pod. Kaney stood at the window, the city's ocean below her stretching endless and bright. The mist had lifted, revealing the teal water that moved with mechanical rhythm between the kelp fields Rome managed. Ferries glided under the walkways, and far away, cranes turned slowly in the docks like patient creatures. She had slept, but not deeply. The nightmares still came, fragments of voices, the sound of laughter when they tied her to the post, the brush of cold metal on her wrists. She had not cried then, and she wouldn't now, but her chest tightened as she remembered how people had looked at her, like something they could own or discard. Ro moved quietly behind her. He had just come back from the lower markets with supplies, water capsules, dried kelp, and a few packs of reef goat meat. He unpacked them with the same focus he gave to everything. When she turned, she saw he'd already set a small plate of sliced fruit and coffee on the table. "You can sit," he said. Kaney crossed the room, bare feet silent on the mat. The warmth of the heater reached her skin, taking away the last trace of chill. She sat, picked up one of the fruit slices, and bit into it. The taste was sharp and earthy. "Larn fruit," she guessed. "You went out early," she said. "I didn't want you to wake up hungry," Ro replied. Kaney's eyes flicked to him. "You're used to taking care of people." He paused before answering. "I used to, before Pearl Halo. Family," he shook his head. "Squad mates. I was recon before the war ended. After that, I didn't like what the work turned into. So I quit, grew kelp instead." The admission surprised her. He spoke it plainly, without guilt or pride. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was honest. Kaney looked at the food again, trying to picture this man. Once a soldier, now a quiet farmer of the sea, walking through the sterile streets that had humiliated her. It didn't fit. Maybe that was why he had stopped. She set the plate down and looked at him directly. "You didn't tell me what happens to me now." He leaned on the counter, arms folded. "That depends. You can stay here until you figure out where to go. Nobody in this district will ask questions as long as you keep your head down. And if I don't want to hide," his jaw tightened slightly, "then you should be ready for what that costs." "Already paid once," she said quietly. He nodded. "Then we do it differently this time." Kaney studied his face, the small lines near his eyes, the steady calm in the way he spoke. He wasn't offering her pity, and that mattered. It made her feel something she hadn't felt since her assignment was revoked: dignity. Still, the question burned in her mind. "You keep saying we. What?" He looked away to the window. "Because they'll come for me first if they notice you here. That's how Pearl Halo works. Easier to erase the human who broke the rule than the rule itself." Kaney frowned. "So you're risking your life for someone you met yesterday." "I'm risking my peace," he corrected. "Not my life. There's a difference." She smiled faintly. "That's not less." He poured more coffee into her cup. "Then don't waste it." For a while, they sat in the soft light. Outside, the kelp fields swayed under the turbines, a slow, hypnotic motion that filled the silence. Kaney sipped her coffee, the bitterness grounding her. She hadn't realized how much she needed something that tasted real. When she finished, Ro spoke again. "You said you worked as a translator. What languages?" "Trade dialects, Human Standard, and the older hybrid tongues from the Zyrene systems," she said. "My mother was human. My father wasn't. I got both worlds, but neither wanted me. That's why they sent you here." "Pearl Halo is where they put the ones who don't fit," she said. "Too foreign for off-worlds, too alien for the core colonies." Ro nodded, understanding more than he let on. "You could work again. I can talk to a friend at the registry." Quiet man. Keeps his word. Kaney looked skeptical. If he finds out what they did, he won't. He knows when not to see. The confidence in his tone was unshakable. She didn't press. Something in her chest eased just slightly. She walked toward the wall where the boards still leaned. The red letters had dried into dark stains. "Are you still planning to paint this?" "After breakfast," he said. "If you want, you can help." "I do." She touched the surface, her fingers tracing the words that had branded her. The paint cracked under her skin. It felt lighter now, not like a scar, but like something that could be rewritten. Ro watched her from the table. He noticed the way her shoulders straightened as she looked at the sign, the way her breathing steadied. She wasn't fragile. She was rebuilding. And maybe, he thought, that's what drew him to her. Caney turned to him. "If you used to be a soldier, why did you stop fighting?" He thought for a moment before answering. "Because I didn't like who I became when I won." Her gaze lingered on him, the honesty in his words disarming her. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Men who help usually want something after." He met her eyes. "And you still think I might?" She hesitated. "I don't know yet." He gave a small nod. "Fair answer." Outside, a light pulse alarm echoed through the concourse. Maintenance alert, not danger. Caney flinched anyway. He noticed the reflex immediately. "Easy," he said, voice low. "Just morning system check." She exhaled slowly, embarrassed. "I hate how my body still reacts." "That's normal," he said. "Takes time to stop waiting for the next hit." Caney's throat tightened. No one had ever said it like that before. Without judgment, without softness. Just truth. They spent the rest of the morning repainting the sign. Ro laid down a thin primer while Caney mixed the gray paint. When the red was gone, he handed her the brush. "What should it say?" he asked. She hesitated, then started to write in slow, careful strokes. "I choose where I stand." Ro watched silently as the letters formed. She stepped back, her face unreadable, then looked at him. He smiled faintly. "Better than mine would have been." "What would yours have said?" "She's not for sale," he replied. Caney nodded. "Yours protects me. Mine tells them why." He said nothing, but his eyes softened. When the paint dried, Caney washed her hands in the sink, the gray stains running off her skin. She looked different now, still cautious but no longer small. Ro checked the clock. "We'll go out soon. You'll need to face the market again." Her expression faltered. "You think that's a good idea?" "Yes," he said. "If you stay hidden, you'll always be what they called you. If you walk beside me, they'll have to see something else." Caney stared at him, searching for any sign of doubt. There was none, only quiet resolve. "Then I'll walk with you," she said. "Good," Ro replied. "But we'll eat first." He opened a sealed packet of reef goat meat, sliced it, and laid it in a pan. The smell of cooked salt filled the room again. Caney leaned against the counter, watching him. "You always cook this much?" she asked. "I learned that food calms people, especially scared ones." She gave him a narrow look. "You think I'm scared?" "I think you've been running on fear so long you forgot what calm feels like." Her lips parted, ready to argue, but the words never came. He was right. When the meal was ready, they ate together again, not speaking much. The tension between them was different now. Warmer, charged with something unnamed but mutual. When Caney finished, she wiped her mouth and looked at him. "Ro," she said, voice low, "if I decide to stay, you won't try to change that?" He met her gaze. "No, I'll only make sure you're not forced to leave." She nodded once, slowly, as if the decision finally settled inside her. Outside, the city's sounds began to rise again. Distant voices, faint drone hums, the rhythm of footsteps on wet metal. Ro gathered his jacket. Caney pulled her new tunic close around her and followed him to the door. As it opened, bright light filled the room. For the first time since the day she'd been tied to that post, she didn't flinch. They stepped out together onto the glass walk, visible, silent, side by side. And though neither of them said it, both understood what the next hours would mean. The first test of whether kindness could survive being seen. The concourse was brighter than Caney remembered. The storm had left the streets washed clean, and now the glass walk reflected everything. Light, movement, even the unease in her eyes. She walked beside Ro, her steps steady but cautious, her long white hair catching the sun like a signal flare. She'd kept the gray tunic simple, tightening it at her waist with a small cord. The sleeves rolled to her elbows. It was the first time she'd walked freely in public since her punishment. Every sound, the hiss of a passing tram, the chatter of vendors, the faint hum of drones, pulled a reaction from her body, small flinches she tried to hide. Ro noticed every one of them. He didn't comment. He simply matched her pace, half a step beside her, not leading, not trailing. His presence was quiet but solid, a kind of armor that didn't need to be seen to work. They turned a corner into the lower market. Steam rose from open food kiosks, the air filled with the smell of fried kelp and sweet larn fruit syrup. It should have been comforting. Instead, Kaney's stomach tightened. She saw people glance at her, then away again, the same kind of glance she remembered from the day before. Recognition followed by guilt, or worse, curiosity. "Keep your head up," Rose said softly. "Don't hide." "I'm not hiding," she replied, though her voice betrayed her tension. "You're surviving," he said. "Different thing." They stopped at a food stall selling Zyronberry porridge. The vendor was a short woman with mechanical gloves and a face that tried to stay polite. Her gaze flicked between Ro and Kaney, lingering just a moment too long on Kaney's violet skin. "2 bowls," Ro said evenly. The woman hesitated. "We're out of Zyron today." Behind her, 2 steaming vats proved otherwise. Ro looked once, then met her eyes. "You sure?" The vendor swallowed. "We can check again in a few minutes." Kaney shifted slightly, her shoulders tightening. She was ready to walk away, to avoid the confrontation, but Ro didn't move. He spoke again, calm but firm. "You can check now." The silence stretched. Finally, the vendor poured 2 bowls and slid them across the counter. "That'll be 8 credits, she said, voice flat. Ro paid without comment. "Thank you." As they stepped aside to eat, Kaney exhaled slowly. "You didn't have to push her," she said. "Yes, I did," he replied. "People learn how to treat you from how they see others do it. You let one person deny your place, and they all will." Kaney stirred the porridge, but didn't eat right away. "You think that's all it takes? One confrontation?" "No," Rose said, "but it starts there." She studied him, realizing he wasn't trying to defend her to feel righteous. He was simply teaching her the only way he knew how to live, with quiet defiance. They ate in silence for a while. The porridge was warm, the Zyron berries sweet and tangy, the kind of food that made people talk about ordinary things. Kaney found that strange comfort in the small details. The heat of the bowl, the smell of rain still trapped in the air, the way Rose's voice grounded her when he spoke. When they finished, they walked toward the harbor lift. The platform was crowded, the line restless. A pair of dock clerks, one of them from the day before, stood near the railing. When they saw her, one smirked. "Didn't think she'd come out so soon," he muttered loudly. Kaney froze. Her body stiffened. The sound was too familiar, the same tone, the same lazy cruelty. Ro turned, his eyes finding the clerks immediately. "You have something to say?" The man hesitated, unprepared for the directness. "Just making conversation." Ro stepped closer, his tone even, not loud. "Then make it without her name." The other clerk tried to laugh it off. "You're protective for someone you barely know." Ro didn't blink. Sometimes one day is enough. The silence that followed was sharp. The clerks looked away first. When Ro turned back, Kaney was watching him, not in fear this time, but in quiet astonishment. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly as they boarded the lift. "I know," he said, "but I wanted to." Her throat tightened. It was such a simple sentence, but it carried something she hadn't felt in a long time. Choice. The lift hummed as it descended toward the lower maintenance deck. Kaney leaned against the railing, her eyes following the faint light of the ocean below. "You said yesterday you'd stop pretending not to see things. Was this what you meant?" He nodded. "I used to ignore people like them. It was easier, until I realized I was becoming one of them." She looked at him for a long moment. "You're not," she said quietly. "I'm trying not to be." The lift doors opened onto the maintenance level. The space was quieter, no market noise, only the low hum of turbines and the dripping of condensation along the pipes. Kaney followed, rowed down the corridor until they reached a small open bay overlooking the water. It was calm here, almost peaceful. Ro pulled a small tin from his pack, the same one that had held the paint. "I brought this," he said. Caney raised an eyebrow. "We're painting again?" He set the tin down and opened it. The words on the board they'd repainted that morning, "I choose where I stand," had dried smooth and clean. He brushed a layer of protective sealant over it, careful not to smudge her writing. She crouched beside him, watching. Why keep it? Why not leave it behind? He didn't look up, because someone will always try to remind you where you came from. This way, you remind them instead. Kenny thought about that for a moment. The idea sank deep, simple, solid. "You've done this before, haven't you?" "What?" "Help someone like me." He paused, then nodded. "Once. Years ago. Didn't end well." "What happened?" "She went back," he said quietly. "Thought it was safer." Caney's voice softened. "And it wasn't." He shook his head. "They found her in the water tanks. No one cared to find out how." The quiet stretched between them. Caney touched the edge of the board, her hand steady. "I'm not her," she said. "I know," Rose said. When he looked at her again, she wasn't the same woman he'd untied yesterday. There was still fear, but it had changed shape. It wasn't submission anymore. It was survival tempered with will. They sat there for a while, letting the sound of the ocean fill the silence. Eventually, Caney spoke again. "You said you grow kelp for the food labs. Why keep doing it if you hate this city so much?" He smiled faintly, eyes on the water. "Because people still need to eat. It's a small good thing in a place that doesn't give many." Caney nodded slowly, understanding more about him than before. "And me? What do I do now?" "Whatever you decide," he said. "But you'll need a name for the registry if you want to work again." "Not Caney." She frowned. "Why?" "Because that name's already been written on a sign," he said. "You deserve a clean one." She thought about that for a long time, the weight of it pressing in quietly. "Then help me choose." Ro looked at her. "Names should come from the person, not the rescuer." "I want it to come from someone who saw me when no one else did," she said. He studied her face, then said, "Then I'll call you what you already are, Free." She gave a small smile, tired but real. "That's not a name. It is to me." The words settled between them, unspoken but felt. As they walked back toward the lift, Caney brushed her fingers against the rail. "If I start working again, they'll still whisper." "They will," Rose said. "You'll hear it too." "I already have," he replied. "Doesn't change anything." At the top of the lift, the concourse lights dimmed to evening mode. The city glowed faint blue against the rain that had started again. They stopped at a food kiosk, the same one that had refused them the day before. This time, Ro ordered 2 reef goat skewers. The vendor hesitated, then nodded quickly. As they waited, Caney noticed something she hadn't before: a young girl behind the counter, watching her with wide, curious eyes. Not judging, just curious. Caney gave a small nod. The girl smiled shyly. That moment, small and fleeting, felt like a victory. When the skewers were ready, Ro handed one to her. "You see, it changes. Not fast, but it does." She looked at the skewer, steam rising in the cool air, and took a bite. The meat was warm, smoky, and real. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was borrowing someone else's world. They walked home through the mist. Behind them, the city went on as if nothing had changed. But to Caney, everything had. She was no longer the girl tied to a post. She was someone with a name worth choosing, and someone who finally believed that being seen didn't have to mean being owned. Inside the pod, Ro hung the repainted sign above the table. Its message faced the window, where anyone passing could read it if they looked close enough. "I choose where I stand." Caney stood beside him, her reflection overlapping his in the glass. "Then we stand here," she said. Ro nodded. "Here's good." And as rain began to tap against the glass again, the small light from inside the pod shone out into the wet city, steady and defiant, like proof that kindness could survive even in a place built to forget it. The next morning came quiet and gray, the kind of light that flattened every edge of the city. The glass panels above the concourse were streaked with condensation, and the hum of the ocean turbines echoed like distant thunder. Ro had been awake for hours, checking his kelp array readings from handheld console. The numbers flickered steady, but his attention wandered. The work no longer felt separate from her. Caney stepped out of the sleeping alcove, barefoot, Her long white hair brushed smooth for the first time since he'd met her. The violet of her skin glowed faintly in the dim light. She had wrapped his spare shirt around herself again, belted at the waist with a strip of tied fabric she had sewn overnight from an old kelp sack. It fit her body in a way that was both practical and quietly beautiful. Ro glanced up. "You didn't sleep much." "I slept enough," she said, stretching her arms. "Your heater hums like a ship engine. It helps." He smiled faintly. "Didn't think that was a compliment." "It is," she said. "Ships mean escape." She crossed to the counter, poured herself water from the flask, and leaned against the table. "You go to the arrays every morning?" "Every day," he said. "If the nutrient levels drop, the lab starts sending messages. They like their kelp perfect. No room for mistakes." Caney tilted her head. "Then you should go." "I will. You're coming with me." Her expression shifted, a mix of surprise and worry. "Ro, that's public, yes," he said, cutting her off gently. "But the maintenance docks are quiet. You'll be fine." She studied him, reading the seriousness behind his calm tone. "You think I need to stop hiding?" "I think you need to see the city from somewhere that's yours," he said. "Not theirs." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Then I'll go." They left before the upper district woke fully. The air was cool and sharp, carrying the smell of wet metal and sea salt. Caney followed Ro through a service tunnel, her bare feet whispering against the floor. The tunnel opened into a wide maintenance platform suspended over the water. Beneath them, endless rows of kelp undulated in the current, their long fronds glowing with pale green light from the submersible lamps below. Caney stopped at the edge, gripping the railing. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Ro set down his toolkit and opened the access panel. "It's alive," he said. "That's what people forget. These arrays feed half the city. Without them, Pearl Halo starves." She knelt beside him, watching as he checked the oxygen valves. "You talk about it like it matters." "It does," he said. "Maybe not to the ones upstairs, but to me it does." She looked at him for a long time. "You still sound like a soldier." Ro paused, wiping his hands. "Discipline stays, even when the cause doesn't." Caney leaned back on her heels, studying him. "Then what's your cause now?" He didn't answer immediately. The only sound was the low hum of the pumps beneath their feet. Finally, he said, "Keeping something alive that can't fight back." She considered that. "Including me?" He met her eyes. "If you want that." Caney looked away quickly, pretending to check one of the consoles. Her pulse jumped, but she didn't want him to see it. They worked for an hour in silence. Ro explained each step as he repaired a cracked nutrient line, showing her how the pressure readings worked, how to flush the filters. Caney listened closely, asking questions, not to impress him, but to understand. When she pressed her fingers against the algae glass and felt the faint vibration of water moving below, her face softened. "It feels alive," she said. "It is," he replied. "You treat it rough, it dies fast. Treat it steady, it grows stronger." Caney smiled faintly. "You talk about kelp like it's a person." He looked at her with a small tilt of his head. "Maybe it's the only one that listens." That earned him a quiet laugh. The sound startled both of them. It had been so long since laughter fit here. They broke for food at midday. Ro opened a small pack of grilled reef goat and bread substitute, handing her half. She tore into it without hesitation, chewing slowly as she stared out over the sea. The light on the water danced like liquid metal, and the reflections made her hair glow almost silver. After a moment, she said, "You know, they'll still talk. About us." "Let them," he said. "They'll run out of words eventually. And when they don't," he looked at her, serious, "then they'll learn silence from me." Caney lowered her gaze to the food, smiling slightly. "You really don't scare easily. I've seen worse than gossip," he said. Her voice dropped. "I haven't." Ro set his food down. "Then we'll fix that. You'll see that people's words only have power when you answer them." She nodded, but her eyes had gone distant, heavy with memory. "I keep hearing the sound of the crowd. Every time I close my eyes. The rain. The smell of the signs paint. It doesn't go away." Ro spoke quietly, not looking directly at her. "It won't. Not right away. But the next sound can be louder. That's how it fades." Caney looked at him. "What's the next sound then?" He picked up a wrench, twisting a loose valve until it clicked. This, he said, work, motion, something that belongs to you again. Something about that answer steadied her. She stood and helped him finish tightening the seals. When they were done, the platform lights reflected off the water like a mirror. By the time they walked back toward the lift, the afternoon glow had turned amber. Caney walked closer to him now, her posture no longer defensive. Halfway up, she asked, "What happens if they come and check your records and see I'm here?" "They won't," he said simply. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've been invisible for a long time. It's a skill." Caney smiled faintly. "You make it sound easy." "It isn't," he said, "but it's worth it." When they reached the upper concourse, the city had started to glow again. Caney slowed near a reflective wall, her eyes catching her own image, the violet tone of her skin under the neon light, the white of her hair almost ghostly. She turned to him, uncertain. "Do I stand out too much?" she asked. He shook his head. "You stand out just enough. And if they remember me, then they'll also remember who stood next to you." They walked through the evening crowd, this time without stopping. Whispers followed, but no one spoke to them directly. Some faces turned away. Others just stared. Caney kept her head up. Her pulse still raced, but she didn't flinch. Back at the pod, Ro lit the small heater and set 2 mugs of full seed coffee on the table. Caney took one, her hands trembling slightly from the cold. "You did well," he said. She let out a quiet breath. "I didn't panic. That's more than most could say," he said. She looked at him then, something curious and vulnerable flickering in her eyes. "Why are you doing this for me, Ro? You could have walked away. You still could." He met her gaze and spoke simply. "Because I don't want to." The honesty in his voice hit her harder than she expected. She looked away quickly, blinking back the burn in her eyes. "I don't know what to do with that." "Then don't," he said. "Just stay alive first." She nodded, holding the mug close, letting the steam rise against her face. Outside, the rain began again, light and steady. Ro leaned back, watching her silhouette against the window, the pale shimmer of her skin, the loose fall of her white hair. She was quiet, but there was strength in her stillness now. For the first time since he'd met her, Ro felt the city change around them. Not because it had grown kinder, but because someone inside it finally refused to break. As the night settled, Caney turned her head, eyes on the glass where their reflections met. "If I help you with the arrays again tomorrow," she said softly, "does that make me your assistant?" Ro smiled. "No, it makes you my equal." She didn't reply, but the faintest trace of relief crossed her face. Outside, the ocean reflected the city's pale lights, the kelp fields waving slowly beneath the surface. Inside, the heater hummed and the room felt smaller, warmer. 2 people sharing quiet, unspoken hope in a world that had tried to take it from both of them. Rain returned before dawn, soft and constant, tapping against the glass panels like a heartbeat. The city never slept, but this hour before sunrise was as close as it came to silence. Inside the pod, the light from the heater painted a warm line across the floor. Caney was awake first this time. She sat near the window, legs folded beneath her, watching the faint shimmer of the ocean far below. Ro stirred on the floor mat, rolling onto his back with a quiet breath. He'd insisted she take the bed again, claiming he slept better on the ground. When he opened his eyes, she was already looking at him, the pale glow of the window outlining her white hair like a halo. "You're up early," he said, voice rough with sleep. "I don't dream well," she answered softly. "When I close my eyes, I see that post. The sign, the faces." He pushed himself up, sitting with his back against the wall. "That's normal. The mind doesn't know it's over until you show it something else." She turned to him, eyes faintly reflective in the low light. "Then show me something else." Ro stood, pulling on his jacket. "Fine. We're going outside. Real outside." "Where?" "The mid-level docks. Nobody goes there this early. It's quiet." She blinked, surprised. "You trust me enough for that." He met her eyes steadily. "You earned it." They left the pod as the first light of day filtered through the rain. The city's walkways glowed dimly blue, glass reflecting the undercurrents of water below. Kaney's pace was careful but steady, her bare feet wrapped in soft polymer sandals he'd found for her the night before. The mid-level docks were different from the markets, wider, quieter, industrial. Cargo cranes stood motionless like metal giants, their cables dripping from the mist. The air smelled of salt and oil, but beneath it was something cleaner, the scent of new rain and open space. Ro led her down a narrow ramp to the lower maintenance bridge, where the kelp fields stretched like a glowing forest under the water. Kaney stopped halfway, leaning against the railing. The view was vast, the world below almost liquid green. "I never thought I'd see this close," she said quietly. "They told us we weren't allowed down here. Not after dark. Not ever alone." "Then it's good we're not listening," Ro said. She looked at him with a small, uncertain smile. "You like breaking rules." "I like breaking the wrong ones," he replied. She studied his face, the small lines at the corners of his mouth, the faint scar on his jaw. He looked older than she guessed, not by years, but by weight carried too long. "You keep saying you're just a worker," she said, "but you don't act like one." "I used to be something else," he said, checking a console by the railing. "Long time ago." "What happened?" "I followed orders," he said simply, "until I didn't like what they made me follow." Kaney turned back to the view, her reflection rippling faintly in the glass. "That's not much of an answer. It's all the answer that matters." She nodded slowly, then asked, "Do you regret it?" "No," he said, "but I regret not walking away sooner." For a while, neither spoke. The rain slowed, turning to a mist that drifted over the water. Kaney leaned her elbows on the railing, the movement small but natural. Ro watched her for a moment, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she looked free for the first time since he'd untied her. When she turned, their eyes met, and the silence between them shifted. "You're watching me," she said. "Yes," he admitted. "And if I asked you why?" "I'd say I'm making sure you're not falling," he said. Kaney smiled faintly. "And if I did, I'd catch you," he said, with no hesitation. Her smile faded into something deeper, trust mixed with confusion, the kind that unsettled her because it felt real. She looked away first, pretending to check the water level gauge beside her. Ro moved beside her, leaning his forearms on the rail. "You know," he said, "you could help me here. The registry would list you as a technician. They'd stop asking questions if you had a job. You'd risk that. They already assume you're with me," he said. "Might as well make it true." Kaney studied him carefully. "You think that's what I want?" "I think you want a life that's yours," he said. "And this could be a start." She exhaled, uncertain. "And if I fail?" "Then you learn," he said. "That's the only rule I have here." They worked for hours, side by side. Ro showed her how to clean the filters, how to balance oxygen ratios, how to read the kelp density charts. Kaney's hands were quick, deliberate. She caught on fast, surprising him with her focus. At one point, she slipped on the slick metal platform. Ro caught her by the arm instantly, pulling her against him before she could fall. Her palm pressed against his chest. She could feel the slow, solid beat of his heart. "Careful," he said. She didn't move right away. "You said you'd catch me," she murmured. "I keep my word." She stepped back, her cheeks warm, her voice unsteady. "I see that." The rest of the work passed quietly. The air grew thicker with humidity, and the light through the water shifted from green to gold as the day turned. Kaney's movements grew sure, confident. She began humming faintly, something in a language Ro didn't recognize, a soft, rhythmic tune that fit the sound of the waves. "What song is that?" he asked. "Old one," she said. "From my mother's colony. It means the storm doesn't stay forever." He nodded. "Good line." When they finished, they sat by the railing, sharing the last of the larn fruit and reef goat jerky from his pack. The food was simple, but it felt earned. Kaney looked at the kelp fields again. "You were right," she said. "It helps. Seeing something else." He smiled. "Told you." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You're quiet, but not empty. What are you thinking about right now?" Ro hesitated, then said, "That I don't remember the last time someone asked me that." "What's the answer?" "That maybe I needed you here more than you needed me," he said. Kaney's expression softened. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" Because it makes me want to stay. He didn't respond right away. He looked out at the horizon instead. Then stay, he said finally. No one's asking you to leave. The air between them thickened again. Not romantic yet, not spoken, but alive with possibility. As evening fell, they walked back to the pod. Kaney's hands were smudged with green algae stains, her hair damp, her body tired in a good way. When they reached the door, she paused. "Ro," she said quietly. "When I was tied there, I thought no one would ever look at me again without disgust." He met her eyes. They were wrong. She nodded, blinking fast, her voice trembling slightly. "You made me remember what I was before they decided what I should be." He reached up, brushed a strand of wet hair from her cheek. "You don't need my help to remember. You just needed someone to stop looking away." Kaney swallowed hard. "Then don't start now." "I won't," he said. She stepped inside first, turning toward the light. He followed, closing the door behind them. The heater hummed to life, washing the room in soft orange glow. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Kaney said, "Tomorrow, I'll go to the registry. If they ask, I'll say I'm your partner in the Kelper race." "Partner," he repeated, liking the sound of it. She nodded. "It's not a lie." "No," he said. "It isn't." Outside, the rain began again, thin and steady, washing the glass walks clean. Inside, the room felt warmer, fuller, a small shelter against the city built to keep people apart. Kaney stood by the window, watching her reflection beside his in the glass. Two figures, different but not separate. For the first time since the sign, she smiled without hiding it. And Ro, standing behind her, finally allowed himself to smile too. Morning came quiet and bright, the kind of clean light that seemed rare on Pearl Halo. The storm had drifted out to sea, leaving the sky clear and the city washed to silver. Thin mist hung over the water where the Kelper rays stretched far below, their glowing tendrils waving like slow fire beneath the surface. Ro was already awake, sitting by the window with a mug of Frolen Seed coffee, watching the fairies move in perfect, lazy rhythm. The city always looked calm from this height, too calm, he thought. Kaney stirred behind him, half wrapped in a light blanket. Her long white hair spread across the pillow like threads of silver glass. And for the first time since he'd met her, her breathing sounded peaceful. He let her sleep longer than usual. He'd learned that peace, for her, came in short windows, and he didn't want to break this one. When she finally sat up, blinking against the light, her skin caught the morning hue, that pale violet shade turning faintly pink where the sunlight touched. "Did you check the arrays already?" she asked, voice still soft from sleep. "Yeah," he said. "They're stable. We could take the day off." She smiled faintly. "You don't take days off." "I do now." Kaney swung her legs off the bed and reached for the clean tunic folded nearby. She moved differently now, more certain, less cautious. The bruises around her wrists had almost faded. When she came to stand beside him, he handed her a mug. "What's the plan then?" she asked. "Breakfast first," he said. "Then something new." "What kind of new?" "You'll see." They ate in silence, sharing reef goat slices and zironberry porridge, steam rising from their bowls. Kaney noticed how normal it felt. Not as a guest, not as someone being protected, but as if this quiet rhythm belonged to both of them now. When they finished, Ro grabbed the old sign from the wall, the one Kaney had painted over days ago. "I choose where I stand." He tucked it under his arm, the edges still rough from weather. "Where are we taking that?" she asked. "To where it started," he said. Kaney froze, unsure she'd heard him right. "Back to the post." "Yeah," he said calmly. "It's time." She hesitated. "Ro, I don't." He turned, meeting her eyes. "You don't have to prove anything. But I think the people who left you there should see that you're not broken. You should see it too." She looked at him for a long moment, pulse quick in her throat. Then she exhaled. "All right, let's go." The walk back to the market concourse felt longer than she remembered. The city was awake now, vendors opening stalls, drones sweeping walkways dry, people moving in neat, practice patterns. As they approached the chrome post, Kaney's pace slowed. The space was empty, as if the rain itself had erased the memory of what happened here. Ro stopped beside her, setting the sign down against the railing. "You can leave it here, or hang it. Your choice. Kaney's hand shook as she reached for the fasteners on the post. The cold metal felt exactly as it had that day. Her chest tightened, but she didn't back away. She fixed the board to the post and stepped back. The sunlight hit the new paint, lighting up her words like glass. People noticed. They always did. A few paused, whispering. One of them, a woman from the market stall, looked away quickly. Another, the same dock clerk from before, slowed his pace, frowning as if the scene didn't make sense to him anymore. Kaney stood tall beside the post, her white hair stirring in the wind. "Let them look," she said quietly. Rose smiled faintly. "They will." He lifted the small can of varnish from his bag and brushed a thin layer over the letters. The strokes were slow, deliberate, like sealing something sacred. A voice behind them said, "She's the one from last week." Ro turned slightly. "She's also the one who's still standing." The man had no answer. The small crowd that had begun to form started to drift away, pretending they hadn't been watching. Kaney exhaled deeply, the sound breaking into a small laugh. "That felt good. Looked better," Rose said. She turned to him, eyes wet but steady. "You knew this would happen." "I hoped it would," he said. For the first time, she reached for his hand without hesitation. The gesture was small, but it carried more than words ever could. They left the post behind, the sign gleaming in the sunlight, and walked toward the lower promenade. For the first time, she didn't feel the weight of eyes on her back. Later that day, they returned to the pod. Kaney went straight to the work table, pulling a scrap of thin polymer sheet from Rose's supply box. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Something for us," she said, her voice focused. She cut the sheet into 2 small rectangles, then pressed one into his hand. The other she held against her chest. With a steady motion, she etched letters into hers using the fine tip of his engraving tool. When she finished, she handed his back. It read, 2 names, 1 home. He looked down at it, then at her. "You're sure about this?" She nodded. "I decided that day when you caught me." They hung the 2 small plaques beside the door, their names etched side by side. Hers written in the alien script of her mother's colony, his in clean block human letters. That evening, they cooked together. The smell of grilled tide kelp and spiced reef goat filled the room. The table was cluttered with tools, brushes, and coffee mugs, but they didn't care. They ate with quiet ease, the kind born from days of surviving together. Kaney leaned back after the meal, watching the city lights flicker through the glass. "You realize," she said, "they'll still talk." Ro nodded. "They will. And you'll still keep your job, even with me here?" He smiled. "They need my raise more than they need their gossip." She laughed softly, a sound that melted into the hum of the heater. "That's the first time I felt safe in that sentence." Ro took her hand again, rough fingers closing around hers. "You earned it." Kaney turned her head, looking out the window. "What happens tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," Rose said, "we start early. You'll help with the nutrient pumps." She nodded, but her voice softened. "And after that," he looked at her, eyes steady, calm as always. "After that, we live." For a long time, neither moved. The air between them held that quiet charge again, the same one that had been building since the first night she'd stayed. No rush, no pretense. Just 2 people who understood what it meant to finally be seen. Kaney rose and stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the mat. Her voice was a whisper now. "Ro, when I first saw you, I thought you were dangerous." "I am," he said, "to the right people." She smiled. "Good." She leaned in, resting her forehead against his chest. His arms came around her naturally. No hesitation, no words needed. Outside, the rain had stopped. The world was still. Through the glass, the old post and the shining sign could just be seen in the distance, small, bright, defiant. It was enough. Kaney lifted her head, her voice soft but sure. "We keep standing, right?" Ro nodded, his voice quiet but certain. "Always." The light dimmed, the city settling into dusk. The kelp fields below shimmered, alive, steady, like their promise. And for the first time since Pearl Halo had tried to break them both, the world outside felt smaller than the world they had built together. The city was awake before them this time. Ferries traced bright paths across the teal water, and morning light broke through the glass panels in long, white beams. Inside Ro's pod, the air smelled of salt and grilled kelp. Caney moved quietly through the room, her hair loose and still damp from washing. She was barefoot again, comfortable now, not hiding the faint scars that had marked her ankles. They had settled into a rhythm, simple, practical, real. Breakfast together, quiet conversation, work on the arrays. It wasn't grand or romantic in the storybook sense. It was better than that. It was believable. Ro poured 2 cups of Ferlin seed coffee, set one in front of her, and leaned against the counter. Registry sent a confirmation, he said. You're officially listed under the maintenance roster now. No inspection for at least 6 months. Caney looked up, blinking. You actually did it. Paperwork's a battlefield of its own, he said, a faint smirk tugging at the edge of his mouth. But yes, you're real to them now, not just a name on a board. Her fingers tightened around the cup. The words sank deep. I've been waiting to hear that for a long time, she said softly. To exist again. You always did, he replied. They just didn't see it. She looked toward the window, her reflection pale and calm against the glass. When I came here, I thought no one ever would. Ro watched her for a moment, then said, You thought wrong. The morning moved slowly after that. They went down to the arrays, where sunlight filtered through the water in shifting ribbons of gold and green. Caney worked beside him, her movements practiced now. She adjusted valves, recorded oxygen levels, and even corrected his placement of a nutrient pipe without hesitation. You're getting good at this, he said. She wiped her hands on a towel. I learned from the best. He gave a quiet grunt. Flattery gets you more work. That's fine, she said, smiling faintly. I like working. He studied her expression, the small peace that had taken root there. She had stopped flinching at loud sounds. Her eyes didn't dart to corners anymore. The tension that had once lived in her shoulders was almost gone. After they finished the rounds, they sat on the edge of the platform. The water below shimmered, and distant ferry horns echoed like soft notes through the mist. Caney pulled her knees up, resting her chin on them. When I met you, I thought you were dangerous, she said again, echoing her words from the night before. Ro glanced sideways at her. And now I think you're just quiet, she said. But that might be worse. He raised an eyebrow. How so? Quiet men see everything, she said. They notice what hurts. He didn't deny it. That's why I stopped being a soldier, he said. You see too much, you start asking questions. Caney nodded slowly. And the answers are never what you hoped. He looked at her, the faintest sadness in his eyes. No, but sometimes they lead somewhere better. They watched the horizon for a while. The wind brushed through her hair, blowing a few strands across her face. He reached out, instinctively, and tucked them behind her ear. She didn't move away this time. When she finally spoke again, her voice was low. I keep thinking about that day. About the sign. What if you hadn't stopped? I would have seen it eventually, he said. No, she said firmly. If you walked by, I'd be gone now. He looked at her directly. Then I'm glad I didn't. Caney held his gaze, her throat tight. You changed my life, Ro. He shook his head. No, I just gave you a door. You're the one who walked through it. She smiled faintly, her eyes wet but steady. Then maybe we walk together now. He didn't answer, but his hand found hers on the railing. She squeezed once, a small confirmation of what both already knew. By late afternoon, the city began to change color again. Neon signs flickered to life, and the upper domes cast long shadows over the water. Ro and Caney took the lift back to the market concourse, not to the place of her shame, but to the food kiosk near it. The same vendor from before stood there, trying not to look nervous. Ro ordered 2 portions of grilled reef goat and tide kelp, then stepped aside. Caney didn't hide behind him this time. She faced the woman directly. Good evening, Caney said calmly. The vendor hesitated, then nodded. Evening. Caney smiled, small, polite, but firm. You make the best kelp in the district. I thought I should say that. The vendor looked startled, then quietly said, Thank you. Caney turned back to Ro. Her chin lifted, and for the first time, she laughed. A clear, genuine laugh that made the nearby heads turn. He handed her a cup of larn fruit nectar, and they walked toward the benches overlooking the water. They ate there, side by side, watching the reflection of the city ripple across the ocean surface. The meal was simple, the moment ordinary, but in a world built on control, ordinary was a kind of miracle. Caney glanced down at their joined shadows. "Do you think this will last?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "You're sure?" He looked out at the endless water, his voice calm. "Everything ends eventually. But this doesn't have to be short." Caney smiled softly. "That's enough for me." They finished their meal in silence. The rain began again, light and steady, misting over the walkways. Ro draped his jacket around her shoulders. She didn't protest. When they returned to the pod, Caney paused at the door, looking up at the plaques they had hung the day before. 2 names, 1 home. She traced her fingers over the letters. "You think people will believe this?" she asked. "I don't care if they do," he said. "I believe it." She turned to him, stepping close. "Then so do I." The lights dimmed as the pod's night cycle began. Caney moved to the window, standing where she could see the faint outline of the post far in the distance. The sign they'd hung still caught the light. "I choose where I stand." She felt Ro come up behind her, his presence warm and solid. For a long moment, they stood without speaking. The rain outside tapped steady against the glass, the city lights blurring into slow motion. Caney turned toward him, her voice quiet but clear. "You think they'll ever stop staring?" "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe they'll just start seeing something different." "And what's that?" He looked down at her, a woman who decided her own story. She smiled, eyes glinting. "And the man who led her?" He shook his head. "No, the man who got lucky enough to meet her." Caney leaned up, closing the space between them. The kiss was unhurried, grounded, nothing desperate or cinematic. Just warm, human real. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. "Thank you, Ro," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Don't thank me. You saved yourself." Outside, the storm faded. The ocean below turned still again, glowing softly with the light from the kelp fields. Inside the small pod, the 2 figures stayed close, silhouetted against the rain-streaked glass. Tomorrow would come with its usual noise, its whispers, and its judgment, but it wouldn't matter. They had already won the only fight that mattered: to exist freely, to love quietly, and to stand without shame. And as the camera would have pulled back from their window, the glowing sign visible in the distance, the lights of pearl halo flickering like small stars, the story of the girl once sold for a drink ended not in tragedy, but in something far rarer on this world: peace.